Greetings everyone, Adrian here. Today I'm releasing a mod. This mod fixes a lot of design and balancing issues out of the current live game. And let's go ahead and get started with the general changes. First off, let's talk about vehicles. All tanks no longer abandon upon death, or have a chance upon abandoning upon death. The main gun can no longer be damaged at low health either. Additionally, the balancing has been readjusted for all tanks. All tanks now have a little less armor, but now have increased health, focusing more or less on RNG and more on statistics and mathematical probability of something going down rather than unfair RNG. I go here, display tables. You can see here, the standard medium tanks have increased health by 160, and resulting in they would take around a 5-shot base system to take out rather than 4-shot base system. However, now there's a new damage type. The tank destroyers here, such as the Su-85, the Panther, the Firefly, the Jackson, and the Jagdpanzer, not the Stug 3. But all these tank destroyers have increased damage. They now deal 240 damage, and resulting in now it will take out these 5-shot tanks still in 4 shots. 6-shot tanks will actually be still destroyed in 4 shots as well, solidifying the role of tank destroyers as well as tank destroyers. Let's go ahead and just make this an enemy. Additionally, the balancing for all the medium tanks as well as heavy tanks have been adjusted to when fighting infantry. If I were to spawn out a... Let's go ahead and spawn out a Panzer IV over here. Spawn in a conscript. Spawn in 2 conscripts. Build some sandbags. The main gun of the medium tanks as well as heavy tanks are adjusted so they have very little scatter now. However, they have limited number of models they can take out. Heavy tanks can take out more models per shot, but the medium tanks only can take 1 model out per shot. Additionally, all the MGs on all the tanks have been buffed, so now they deal quite a bit more damage. So here the MG is doing some significant damage. The tank is able to reliably take out 1 model per shot. Not all the time, but in general. But now in the improved medium machine guns, now the positioning of the front-mounted hull machine guns is quite important. You can see here with the sandbags, a very easy target usually can go like 3 or 4 models statistically. No longer where you just get unlucky based on squad formations going around a corner or whatnot. Now the tanks are pretty set in stone on taking out individual models. You can see here, the lack of the hull machine guns actually hurting the fighting capability of the tank. Next up is... here we go. The slot items. On a similar note as into a vehicle abandonment and main gun destroyed, a player should not be rewarded additionally just for playing the game how you should. So all slot items no longer drop, such as the LMG, Piets, bazookas, Brens. Heavy weapon teams still, of course, get abandoned upon death, but slot items are passed upon between the squads no longer get randomly dropped. This may be a bit controversial, but I sort of view in the same light as vehicle abandonment. Unnecessary RNG when it should just be, in general, not just reduction of bad RNG. Though the stakes with slot weapons is much lower. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about flamers. All initial engineer squads will have access to non-doctrinal flamers. However, in order to prevent any sort of like clown car rush and all the variations, all flamers now require one command point. I'll just go ahead and spawn in all the engineers. You can see here, flamer, 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 and flamer. All of them require one command point. All of them available non-doctrinally. MG nests. All factions now have access to MG nests. This will help pad out any sort of attacking path you go with, making it all players have access to a suppression platform. Let's go ahead and, as you all know, the Pioneers are still the same. Go to the bunker and then upgrade to the MG, costing munitions. As you can see here, the machine gun emplacement here has outright cost munitions to start out with. Does not require an upgrade. However, all machine gun nests do consume 3 population. Got the So you can see here, while it doesn't show it here for the population, if I were to max it out, see here, population cap reach requires 3 manpower. Population cap, of course, requires 3 manpower, and these 2 outright just consumed upon initially. The OKW is going to be a little bit different. Instead of a MG emplacement, they have the flak emplacement. 5 command points, can no longer be decrewed, and is vulnerable to small arms fire. But it also costs fuel rather than munitions. But still retains the anti-aircraft, and additionally the rate of fire has been altered. More suppression per shot, but less, less rate of fire. Or longer, consistent bursts in order to gauge the infantry squads. And yeah, that's all for the MG notes. Now, time for our artillery notes. Let me go ahead and spawn in the L20, the team weapons, left 18, team weapons, no tanks, the priest, and the sexton. And also, if I were to spawn in the British HQ, the platoon command post, anvil, population cap reached. I suppose I could just done that. And the Brits also have access to the 25-pounder emplacement. Something to note here. If I were to retarget over here, all artillery weapons have access to an auto fire. Let's go ahead and set up a quick test. Let's see here, anything in their radius, they will automatically target. They will not repack up and engage stuff that's out of their radius. If I were to copy paste. So they'll engage anything within their radius here. And they're also limited to only killing one or hitting one model per squad per shot. So you don't have to worry about random squad wipes of these shots. This is a way to help promote these howitzers to have continuous barrages in order to help provide suppressive fire. This also will provide more constant suppression of fire upon static units, emplacements, and vehicles, giving these units a bit more, what's it called? Consistency and constant pressure against these enemy squads and buildings and structures. However, you may have noticed that these guys are not automatically engaged. That's because they have their auto attack, however, is different. It's now a direct fire auto attack. These guys will have a direct fire auto attack with a maximum range of 70 units. They can hit more than one model per shot, but they do have also a minimum range of 15. This way, it provides these guys more constant pressure to apply, but with their mobility, they can skirt around, engage, fall back, and so on and so forth. This also makes these units a little bit more vulnerable to frontline aggression, due to the fact that more frontline aggression and easier to be taken out if they're on the front line as well. And that pretty much sums up all of the artillery emplacements. You can see here, if I were to spawn out some more dummies, these guys will not repack up and auto-engage. However, there is a little bit of technique I discovered. You pack them up, press stop, and this way then they can reposition and engage something if they're not currently tasked on targeting something. That sums up all of the artillery placements, and now time for the heavy AT gun positions. The 17-pounder, which I need to build the British HQ for that. Go ahead and get it producing. The Pack 43. And also the B4 Super Heavy Howitzer. The B4 Super Heavy Howitzer is now a dedicated heavy anti-tank gun. Oops, that's the ML20. All these heavy anti-tank guns no longer have world-piercing rounds. So no longer can they be constrained to, say, fighting through and shooting through forest lines or city maps. And compensate, however, their range has been increased from 80 to 100. Seeing they can no longer, this will allow them a bit more open field advantage for these weapons, supposed to be more used in open field or down narrow choke points, rather than just through buildings, a bit cheesy. Additionally, their damage has been restored up to the full... Actually, no, these guys always had the full 320 damage. So if I were to spawn, say, enemy tank, let's go with a T-34. The 5-hit shot basis, this will take 3 shots to take out. Let's go ahead and quickly demonstrate the B4 once again. See here? Fires, shoots, impacts. Just like any other heavy AT gun. But the B4, it still retains a barrage ability for 300 450 munitions. It will fire 3 shells, which I was actually just lucky hit because of the arc in the projectile. It'll fire 3 shells, dealing only 320 damage, and limited to only hit up to 3 models per squad per shot. So you don't have to worry about full squad wipes with the barrages, but allow this player, whoever controls these weapons, into the continuously siege a single point. And that pretty much sums it up for all the heavy AT gun changes. One last thing. Actually, 2 things. Let's go ahead and talk about anti-aircraft vehicles. All the anti-aircraft vehicles have undergone some small adjustments. We've got the M5 for the Soviets. The Black Half-Track. The Ostwind. What was it? Like vehicle, the M15, and the Brits Centaur. And some first, let's talk about these lighter vehicles. Actually, all the vehicles now have gained a stationary suppression, allowing them to basically function more like a heavy HMG. The suppression has been upped for the flak half-track and the quad half-track. So now when they're stationary, they can actually provide a pretty good amount of suppression, but no longer have any mobile suppression. The 251 flak half-track here has access to the suppression when stationary, but now also gains an auto attack on the move. Additionally, its health has been increased up to 400, but no longer has the get out of jail smoke card. The suppression when stationary also applies to the Centaur and Ostwind. As we're gonna go ahead and bring this forward, clipboard, copy, paste. You can see here when shooting, moving around, no suppression. But once stationary, suppression starts engaging. Suppression may be a bit low on some of these vehicles, which can be adjusted later on, but for now, this of course gives access to a mobile anti-blobbing tool that's not focused on huge amounts of damage, more focused on preventing the opponent from moving and dealing damage. And now on to the last thing for the general changes. The initial units are now all the basic infantry squad, conscripts, grenadiers, Volksgrenadiers, infantry section, and riflemen. However, they also are sort of spawned in at the beginning of the match. So, and additionally, the item changes depending on what bulletin you have. If you have an engineer bulletin, it will spawn an engineer, etc., etc. The officer bulletin for both the expression aura bulletin for USF will grant access to lieutenant colonel to be spawned in instead. The 2 cuts officer bulletin for the United Kingdom will bring in the air landing field officer. The what's it called? The Stormtrooper bulletin for Ostheer will bring in a Stormtrooper squad. Osttroopen bulletins will bring in Osttroopen. Rear Echelon bulletin will bring in Rear Echelon. The what's it called? The Partisan bulletins will bring in a Partisan squad, and the Penal bulletins will bring in a Penal squad. And that, I think, tops off of all the general changes. Now, here we are with the Soviets. The Soviets undergone some small changes. primarily to the Tier 1 structure. The Soviets have been largely regarded as probably the more well-rounded factions, have usually access to many items, excluding, I would say, one thing: Tier 1. Tier 1 is one of those structures where you have limited items. This has been changed. All the snipers have been adjusted. The snipers are now all light infantry squads, so the sniper has been moved to doctrines and replaced with the M42 light anti-tank gun. The M3 scout car and the penal battalions all has undergone some minor changes as well. The M42 has a bit more damage and penetration in order to make it more reliable to support the structure. The M3A1 no longer costs fuel and now has increased manpower costs as well. Additionally, this unit has its armor readjusted, so it's no longer super tanky, but its main gun has been buffed slightly, as well as it's able to capture passively like the Kubelwagen. The penal squad has undergone some small changes as well. Since with the M42 now available and much more reliable, it no longer has access to the PTRS upgrade non-doctrinally. The grenade package and Molotov package has been combined for Soviets, so no longer have separate research for that. And the field infirmary has a little bit of a cost increase of 10 fuel. The field infirmary also affects now the non-doctrinal forward HQ. All factions have access to a forward HQ non-doctrinally now. The medics to acquire for them, however, has been slightly adjusted. See here, the M3, if I highlight this map, you can see you can go out and start initiate a capture. The cancer rounds has been adjusted as an outright remove for the M42 for as of right now. The delayed flamers, the scout car is no longer reliant on solely as a flame carrier or the rare PTRS carrier. Now it is an actual scout capture mobility unit that can help support, can later on be used for a flamer upgrade. See here, the field camp available non-doctrinally requires no structures of any sort, has the retreat point automatically available. You can see here, and they retreated back to it. And I think that sums up all the non-doctrinal changes. Oh yeah, the field infirmary, once fully researched, which not only grants access to medics back at home, but also grants medics to the forward HQ as well. All forward HQs. Now onto the doctrinal changes. PPSHs can now be upgraded by penals, guards, and combat engineers. Conscript repairs can be used by penals. And guards have undergone some changes. Let me just go ahead and spawn in a squad of guards. Guards no longer have PTRSs automatically upgraded. They can either be upgraded with the PTRSs or with the DPs. Choose one, not both. Additionally, the PTRS upgrade now spawns 3 rather than 2, since the vehicles have slightly increased health. The DP upgrade still allows access to the button vehicle. The airborne troop tactics have undergone some changes. The weapon crate system was quite a cumbersome ability. I drop a crate, give SVTs unless it's penals, and get PPSHs. Now it's a little bit slightly convoluted with the differences in what you can get. It also can be very potent, and the fact that it's just call in to upgrade rather than just have upgrade available to the squads. I decided just to outright replace it with the Allied Air Supply drop. The Guards Airborne was neither unique nor an airborne unit, so I just outright replaced it with the The Sniper Light Infantry Squad, which is a 4-man squad with a single scoped rifle. It's a light infantry squad similar to Jaeger Light Infantry. The what's it called? The rally points, since it's no redundant with the non-doctrinal for retreat points, I replaced it with the Commissar just because it's a relatively rare unit to see. Committee Defense Doctrines M42 has been replaced with Sniper Light Infantry. And let's talk about the Lend-Lease. I'll go ahead and actually select the Lend-Lease Doctrine. I should have that queued up, but I'll go ahead and do that. While in the meantime, I'll go ahead and talk about all the other changes. Tank Hunter PTRSs can also now be upgraded by combat engineers and penals. The Tank Hunter's ML20 has been replaced with the D4. Urban Defense. I'm not a huge fan of the forward HQs being extremely powerful or not super great depending on the map, and can be extremely hard to displace with some stone buildings and whatnot. I outright replaced it with just the with a Dishka, which helps support the urban style of combat. And the M42, seeing how it's available non-doctrinal, has been replaced with a PTRS upgrade. The Soviet Combined Arms Army has undergone a small change, seeing it has access to both a reconnaissance and off on the IL-2 bomb strike, as well as the ML-20, making it a clear winner of the artillery wars. I decided to outright replace the bombing strike with the B4, making it so now that Doctrine have access to a heavy AT gun and indirect fire through the ML-20, making a good counterpart to the joint operations for Ostheer. Lend-Lease has undergone some changes. I'll talk about the M4C later with the USF Sherman 76, but now instead of Dishka Colin, that's slightly bugged. I'll go ahead and fix that before this mod actually gets released. This MG ability has been replaced with M2 Browning. The guards ability, the M5 Assault Group, is one of those abilities that's just pretty much called in just to get the guards unit. I decided to outright replace the ability with allied weapons. Conscripts can be upgraded and penals can be upgraded with a single bar, while combat engineers can be upgraded with a twin bazookas. And that sums up the changes of the Lend-Lease, but the Sherman M4C will be talked about in the USF section. Partisan tactics have undergone some small changes. Partisan anti-infantry and partisan anti-vehicle have been merged into a single ability. Now they will spawn out a single 5-man squad, all armed with bolt-action rifles, random variation of what style of rifle, but they're all equivalent in combat. Additionally, they have access to upgrades, the not PPS upgrade, but a 5 SMG upgrade, which just gives them 5 random SMGs, all of them equal in combat, so you can get Thompsons, grease guns, Stens, or MP40s, as well as PPSHs. Or they can be upgraded with 3 PTRS rifles. 3 PTRS rifle, not 3 PTRS, but 1 PZB, 1 PTRS, and 1 Boys AT rifle. This will allow them to be more effective rather than just a one-time call-in to be any sort of effectiveness. And so this should help improve their capabilities. Additionally, if you have access to if you choose the Soviet Reserve variation, they will have access to the repair upgrade. Additionally, the anti-infantry partisan ability has been replaced with PMD 6 mines, in which the partisans can also place. If I were to advance fortification. See here, PMD 6 mines have also been changed, so now they'll lay down in a minefield like the S mines. Additionally, they do gain the border fences, picket fences. If I were to stop it early, you can see here they got the picket fences. And that sums up, I believe, all the changes for the Soviet Union, all the doctrinal. Now, here we are with Ostheer. Ostheer has been known for having trouble, especially versus the more aggressive, more powerful infantry units of the Allied forces. So, overall, additionally, it's known for a really convoluted tech scheme of, it's basically teching with additional steps. You build tier 1, then research battle phase 1 to be able to build 2, then research battle phase 2 to build tier 3, and then research battle phase 3 to get tier 4. I've changed the teching structure and alignment quite significantly, which will of course allow Ostheer to be much more aggressive and able to apply more pressure early on. First off, let's talk about tier 1. First noticeable thing is there's no MG42, but the Grenadiers are now available from the structure. This of course allows you to, well, build your standard infantry squad in your initial structure like everybody else. Additionally, Pioneers have undergone some pretty big changes. Their SMG damage has been increased, so they're much more capable to support any squad on the field and able to conduct more flanking opportunities. Their artillery mine has had a cost reduction, but no longer one-shots light vehicles. Its damage is now set to 240 from 400. At 300 munitions for a dedicated AT mine, you don't have to worry about infantry actually tripping it. This can be quite usable and spammable. Additionally, Pioneers can have access to a number of doctrinal abilities such as stun grenades, G43s, and ambush camouflage. Let's then talk about Tier 1. Tier 1, of course, pretty simple. Panzer Grenadiers move to Tier 1, but still requires Battle Phase 1. The MG42, of course, has been moved here, and the Sniper has been moved to Doctrine, since all snipers have been adjusted so they're no longer one-man, one-shot kills. Now it moved to Doctrines, renamed the Jaeger Light Infantry, and now 4-man squad for a single-scoped rifle. Speed up. As you can see here, immediately, Panzer Grenadiers have undergone some changes. They are now a 5-man squad, still all equipped with STG-44s, but their damage has been reduced per individual model basis. This thus makes it a more effective mid-range and close-range unit in comparison to Riflemen with bars, but Riflemen with bars will still win at long range, giving this guy a clear rock, paper, scissors sort of way to gauge close range or long range, or go for Grenadiers for long range. Next up, let's go get Tier 2. Tier 2 no longer requires Battle Phase 1. Which I sort of researched Battle Phase 1 here earlier to show off Panzer Grenadiers. The 222 has been replaced with a 221, can either be upgraded to a 222 or a 223. The fuel cost has been reduced for the 221, but has slight manpower increase. The upgrades both cost a bit of manpower and fuel, thus giving the Germans access to a light vehicle to help harass infantry, and as well as a sort of initial vehicle counter to help engage those M3 scout cars, universal carriers, if upgraded with the autocannon. Note the autocannon and the the 223 radio set do require Battle Phase 1. The flame projector upgrade also requires Battle Phase 1. But now Ostheer has available from near beginning the game access to a light vehicle to harass and a mobile reinforcement point. Speaking about reinforcement points, let's talk about the bunker. As you can see here, the munitions, the stated MG42, but look at this. Medic upgrade now costs manpower and fuel. Command post now costs manpower and fuel. This is the command bunker, like is a non-doctrinal forward retreat point. If I were to quickly build one, activate the forward retreat point, retreats back to here and not to over here. Let's see if we can get this guy over here and retreat. Oh, that was closer. You can see here, they retreat back to that bunker. Now, additionally, something I forgot to mention, that all 4 retreat points no longer reduce reinforcement rates. So, this is a buff for all factions, seeing now all factions have access to a 4 retreat point. Something you've been wondering, you notice that there's a non-doctrinal Puma right here. Yes, the Puma is available non-doctrinally now in Tier 1. It requires Battle Phase 1, not in Tier 1, Tier 2, but still requires Battle Phase 1 in order to be built. Now on to Tier 3. Nothing much has changed. You still have access to the Stug, Oswin, and Panzer IV. Actually, nothing has changed there. But now let's go to Battle Phase. Let's first talk about Battle Phase 3 and Tier 4. In order to get beforehand to get Battle Tier 4, it's literally the prime example of teching with additional step. It's like, it would make no difference if the cost was combined into Tier 4 and have it separated from Battle Phase 3 into Tier 4. It's just some redundant teching sort of system. Now, Battle Phase 3 will unlock access to additional units available in all these structures. Tier 3 have access to the Panther. Tier 1 has access to the Brumbar, an excellent infantry support vehicle to support the infantry. And now we have the Panzerwerfer in Tier 2, a mechanized unit to help sort of thematically fit in with all the other mechanized units. And that pretty much sums up all the non-doctrinal changes, I believe. Let me just go ahead and check my list over here, see if I forgot anything. And nope, doesn't look like it. Now on to the doctrinal changes. First off, let's talk about the command tank. The command tank has undergone a small change. If I were to spawn one in, that's a little bit of a visual bug. I'll go ahead and fix that before this mod go live. But the command tank is now a full-size barrel Panzer IV, as well as has the armor skirts. It still retains the received damage buff for all the nearby units, but now it's just a full-size barrel Panzer IV. And additionally, with the armor skirts, it has its health pumped up to 960 rather than the 800 of the standard Panzer IV, rather than the high armor of the Panzer IV-H available to OKW. Let's talk about close air support. That's this one.
Cargo trucks are now available. Requisition 1 to aid in resource production. Reconnaissance.
The close air support has undergone some quite large changes. Let me go ahead and turn on Fog of War. First, let's talk about Stuka Reconnaissance Pass. The aircraft moves slightly slower and now provides vision in a circle rather than a cone. Just a bit more information for such a quick reconnaissance pass. Still cheap, still quick, still effective. The supply drop zone has replaced with a cargo truck.
Supply truck has been dispatched.
The supply drop zone is a bit more of a bursty style thing. The supply truck is more of a consistent long-term thing. The aircraft loiters have been adjusted, so let me just go ahead and renable fog of war. Have been adjusted, so now rather than strafes, are now single aircraft loiters. We've seen the anti-infantry strafe available to the assault supply doctrine, is that what it's called? But now the single anti-tank aircraft is something a bit more unique. While it's been more expensive per plane cost, but it's cheaper, easy to spam out, and just much more available. Additionally, the Stuka Dive has been replaced with Jaeger Light Infantry.
Penetration specialists have joined the fight.
The Stuka Dive has replaced with Jaeger Light Infantry due to the fact that having both reconnaissance and a Stuka Dive Bomb can be a bit overpowering against any sort of artillery doctrine. This is sort of a vendetta I have at removing all reconnaissance overflights plus off-map artillery strikes, just so artillery doctrines can be much more useful in 1v1s. All Schuppen have undergone a small design change. No longer they have accuracy buff and debuff. Now they have a receive damage buff while in cover, while retaining their standard stats while out of cover. This will make it less reliant. This unit is supposed to be designed to be cannon fodder and also more of a stall defensive unit. While they still get outgunned by other general units, they are of course still be able to fight, stall, and hold out for you to swing in some additional support, such as a mortar or HMG. Their unit is not to kill, their unit is supposed to hold the line in order for you to move and engage. Additionally, the LMG upgrade has been removed and they now have 7 men. Stormtroopers. Stormtroopers have the longest time have an identity crisis. They've always been overlapping roles with the Grenadiers and Panzer Grenadiers. Less so now, but they still have now a sort of a lack of identity with the MP40 upgrade and whatnot, so have access to the Panzerschreck upgrade. Now they are a 5-man squad. 5-man squad armed with bolt-action rifles. They can either be upgraded with MP41Rs, aka PPSH's rechambered to Parabellum, or with a ×3 PZB upgrade. The PZB upgrade is, of course, they're dedicated, and it'll make them much more unique than the Panzer Grenadiers with their Panzerschreck upgrade. Additionally, their bundle grenade has been replaced with grenade assault, similar to the assault grenadiers, and so retain the smoke grenade. Oops, I suddenly realized I probably should adjust the hotkeys. Additionally, their tactical advance is now no longer require the PPSH upgrade. Now you can have tactical advance with their bolt action rifles or with the PZBs. Additionally, to make them more of a counterpart to partisans, they can lay down shoe mines as well as the reinforced wire. This will, of course, give them much more uniqueness in comparison to the Panzer Grenadiers as well as Grenadiers. Now let's talk about encirclement doctrine. Note that the stormtroopers, before I go on to that, still can be researched with the ambush camouflage if the doctrine allows it, as well as has access to the G43 upgrade if the doctrine allows it. Encirclement has undergone a small change. Let me just go ahead and give all these points to the opponent. And let me go ahead and spawn in the ability for a vehicle breakthrough. Close the pocket and vehicle breakthrough are now have been combined into one ability for 200 munitions. The duration is right now 2 minutes, but that's probably a little bit too long. I'll probably change that if it's considered too overpowered. Spawn some targets for the close of the pocket. And here we go. Oh, it looks like I may have forgotten to actually add in that ability. There it goes. Vehicle breakthrough says 200 missions. Any sector cut off will receive airstrikes of duration. Beforehand, it had also sent light mortar barrages to the frontline sectors, but that was pretty worthless. So losing that's not a huge issue. Breakthrough here. Vehicles, of course, gain the increased movement speed as well as ability to capture. And now, instead of just calling in a bunch of Panzerwerfers and off-mat artillery strikes, it's now just airstrikes. Rapid decapture. All these points are now cut off. Anti-tank traits for the vehicles, giving them some time to react to the ability. Incendiary bombing runs for not only the structures but also for the infantry. I probably may drop some frames here. And as well as for the structures, will receive bombing strikes. Still retain their heavy obliteration of opposition. Additionally, this ability will cycle through every sort of 15 seconds, so it has the possibility to reactivate in case the opponent resecures the sector. If I were to selection owner enemy, you can see here, no longer closing the pocket. Of course, the airstrikes called in will still, of course, still come in. You can see here, still cut off, but now let's go ahead and put it back in and manage to, and now the close of pockets are re-engaged. You can see here by the blinking TAC minimap. With those two abilities combined for encirclement, it makes it so it's less map dependent, more options to cut off the sectors and more time to cut off the sectors. And that last ability now freed up is replaced with a Command Panther call-in. Let me go ahead and bring up my Word document once again, scroll it down. This is something that people may like. Let me just go ahead and spawn in a Pioneer, Grenadier, and Panzer Grenadier. The G43 upgrade has undergone a small change. Well, other than of being available to Pioneers, Panzer Grenadiers now, with how their 5-man squad works, they only get upgraded with 2 models of G43s, which just gave them a straight damage buff based on how their current performance worked per model. And the Grenadiers variant is now the Veteran Squad Leader variation of the G43, which gives them a 5-man squad and 1 G43. Seeing how people want to see the 5-man squad much more available, this is one way to make it much more available. Now this is sort of a joint upgrade with the Veteran Squad Leaders and with the G43. So now you have access to 5-man Grenadiers and a large number of doctrines. Let's see now. The German Mechanized and the Mechanized Assault Doctrine both had a 250 half-track call-in with a unit inside. This has been changed just to a 250 half-track call-in. Additionally, the 250 half-track has undergone a small change. Only requires manpower now, no longer requires Battle Phase 1. And additionally, the armor has been reduced, so no longer super resilient to gunfire. Oh, this is not the one I'm looking for. This is the one I'm looking for. Additionally, it can now capture points by itself, such as the Kuppelwagen, and so it retains the ability to haul down for suppressive fire. So it's much more vulnerable to gunfire, but able to retain all of its other capabilities, as well as no longer cost fuel or require Battle Phase 1. Joint Operations has access to both a off-map artillery barrage, the light artillery barrage, and reconnaissance, as well as plus a bonus of their own artillery, making us a clear dominant role in artillery wars. So the light artillery barrage has been replaced with tactical movement, giving all of your units a brief sprint for the duration. Let's talk about Luftwaffe supplies. I'll go ahead and restart the match in order to bring that up. Meantime, Assault Grenadiers have been replaced with veteran squad leaders. The Puma call-in ability has been replaced with Panzer IV H's for the mobile defense doctrine. Spearhead has access to both reconnaissance and fragmentation bombs. Reconnaissance overflight have been replaced with spotting scopes, giving access to Tiger tank to spotting scopes. Storm Doctrine has access to both the reconnaissance Stuka dive bomb and its own artillery piece. The Stuka dive bomb has been replaced with Stormtroopers. Yes, Stormtroopers are now available to the Storm Doctrine. Jaeger armor contains both reconnaissance and Stuka dive bomb as well. So it's with already have access to spotting scopes. The Stuka dive bomb will remain, but the reconnaissance overflight has been replaced with Jaeger light infantry. Jaeger armor, Jaeger infantry. Jaeger Infantry Doctrine's Jaeger Command Squad was not a very unique squad other than just being a 5-man squad, but it's now sort of become redundant with number G43s and G43s in its own doctrine. So the Jaeger Command Squad has been replaced with Jaeger Light Infantry. And now on to Luftwaffe Supply. Large number of changes here. First off, Supply Drone has been replaced with the Supply Truck. The Stuka Dive Bomb, seeing as the doctrine has both reconnaissance overflight and Stuka Dive Bomb, the Stuka Dive Bomb has replaced with Supply Drop, which is similar to, or the exact same as the Ostheer Doctrine Supply Drop, so it drops an MG34 and a PaK-40, as well as a pitiful amount of munitions and fuel. While there's still both reconnaissance and incendiary bombing run, but seeing how it generally decrews weapons rather than outright eliminate artillery emplacements, that's sort of fine. And the airdrop medical supplies have undergone a small change. Rather than costing, 45 munitions to drop 3 medical crates, the medical crates can easily be reclaimed by your opponent, seeing you only really want 1, not 3 dropped. It has undergone a small change. Let me just go ahead and menu hit points. You're now severely wounded. Additionally, it can be quite cumbersome for healing nearby HMGs. So now it drops a single medical crate that does not need to be picked up, or can't be picked up by units, and it will drop and heal nearby units. This way, an MG42 can remain deployed, get healed up after engagement, and just be ready to go. A quick select drop supply heal ability. Additionally, this medical crate does expire after a short duration of 20 or 30 seconds, if you get the exact amount. So it's a limited healing point click ability, which should be much more adaptable to support other units other than infantry squads. Plus, its cheap cost is equivalent to the first aid field first aid ability. And that pretty much sums it up for the Luftwaffe supply, and I think that sums up for all the Ostheer doctrinal changes. Yep, and on to the next faction. And here we are with USF. USF is known for being probably the most powerful faction in the game, primarily to the fact of how the riflemen work and their bars and everything, how aggressive they can be in the early game. This faction has undergone some pretty big changes with its teching scheme as well. Beforehand, it was known for being quite convoluted, but now it's a nice linear path. First, let's talk about Tier 1. As you notice here, the rear echelons are no longer here, and now it's the Assault Engineer Squad. This is sort of help thematically more fit in the role with USF, have more of a dedicated, aggressive, close-range combat infantry to support the bit more longer-range rifleman squad. Additionally, the squad size has been reduced back to 4 from 5. The target size, I believe, has been improved, however. So no, they're not a glass cannon. They're more of a resilient assault squad, similar to Sturm Pioneers. And I think that sums up with all the Tier 0. Time to go to the Tier 1. Officers the lieutenant and captain are no longer free when researching. The lieutenant can now be individually built for 300 manpower. It's a 4-man squad with good received accuracy size, as well as have access to upgrade with Thompsons. This is something similar to the captain as well. If I were to bring him in, 4-man squad, access to Thompsons. This, though, of course, makes them into a non-doctrinal elite infantry unit squad, if the player chooses to build them. In Tier 1 now, there's access to the HMG, the AT gun, the mortar, and the M20 utility car. The stuff has largely undergone pretty much no changes. The 50 cal has undergone some small changes. Now has a little bit longer bursts, but less penetration, making it a bit more effective when suppressing infantry squads, and less instant denial to light vehicles as well. Utility car has undergone some big changes here. Utility car just now costs 200 manpower, and you can see here it has no HMG to start out with. Additionally, its get out of jail smoke card has been removed, and now has access to construct MG emplacement for manpower and munitions, and ability to build anti-tank mines. Note, when building the machine gun nest, it will lock down and disable the vehicle for the duration of construction. This cannot be cancelled. The M6 anti-tank mine has undergone some small changes. Now it costs 40 munitions, like the Teller mine, can only cause regular engine damage, and its damage has been reduced from 400 to 240. And now here we go, a full dedicated HMG position built by a utility car. The armored skirt package has been renamed to a combat package, which of course equips it with the armored skirts to increase durability and armor, as well as the 50 cal. This of course allows them to engage. Additionally, the HMG has been improved to sort of match the 50 cal stationary HMG. So now it can actually engage light armor quite successfully, even winning out quite reasonably versus the 221, but not versus the 222. This upgrade does not cost munitions, or I thought I changed that. I will go ahead and change that before this mod gets released. It costs manpower and fuel rather than just straight up munitions. Now let's talk about the Tier 2 structure, the captain structure. You got access to the Stewart, the Howitzer, and the AA half-track. Stewart, of course, has its buffed MG, so it's a little bit more effective versus infantry, and you want to try to focus its hull-mounted one to be more effective. We already talked about the suppression for the AA half-track, and the Pack Howitzer is still the same. Nothing unique here. Now on to Major. With USF have a later retreat point than all the other factions, the Major will come out free. Additionally, Like all the other factions, establishing the retreat point no longer increases the reinforcement time of infantry squads. Something major to note is that the Scott has been replaced with a Sherman 105. The Sherman 105 does not have the bulldozer automatically upgrade, but still can be upgraded with the 50 cal. This will give USF a more of a durable anti-infantry support, and for late game indirect fire, you still have access to not only the major artillery, but also access to the pack howitzer. The Scott was moved to Doctrine due to the fact that it comes out too late to be an extreme effect and only used to help support like mass AT guns or bazookas. So now this is a bit more of a heavier support unit to support the infantry. And the Scott can come out earlier in a Doctrine. And that sums up all the non-doctrinal changes onto the Doctrines. First off, Airborne. The Airborne Doctrine has undergone small changes. Pathfinders are now functioning a little bit different. Here you go, Pathfinder. You can see here, they're still 0 command points, but no longer automatically come upgraded with the scoped rifles. They can be upgraded with the scoped rifles, but consumes both of their weapon slots, so I can either choose between the bars, bazookas, or their scoped Garands. The scoped Garands turns into the light infantry squad. Additionally, the Pathfinders have better received accuracy as well as reduced reinforcement rate. When they're unupgraded, they're quite similar to Grenadiers. When they're upgraded, they perform more like Jaeger light infantry. Or you can always upgrade them 2 bars and make them more of an opposition late game to Grenadiers as well. Or of a counterpart to Grenadiers. The 2 weapon drops have merged into one for the Airborne Doctrine. So if you drop in the AT gun, you also get the 50 cal. Cost is 100 munitions and 200 manpower. Nice bundle. And the last ability, now the freed up spot has been replaced with the anti-infantry strafe that's usually only available to tactical support. Armor Company. Armor Company's Assault Engineer's ability has been replaced with Withdrawal and Refit. The Bulldozer ability has been replaced with the the Tank Assault Packages, granting access to not only the White Phosphorus round to the Sherman tank, but also grants access to the White Phosphorus round to the 105 Sherman. Additionally, grants access a capability to upgrade with Dozer Blades for both the Sherman tanks. Now let's talk about the infantry company. The M42, the 21 mortar half track, it overlaps with the priest artillery piece, and the mortar half track has been replaced with a rear echelon column. The rear echelon column the rear echelon themselves has undergone a small change. Now they are a 6-man squad, cost 240 to call in, and they're designed to be more of a support unit like Ostrupen. They don't get the accuracy buff or debuff or received accuracy bonuses. They're just a simple reserve style type infantry such as Conscript and Ostrupen. Let me go ahead and get the population cap. Instead of building a fighting position now with 6 members to fit in a 4 exposed slot, they now build a regular machine gun emplacement that takes less time to construct and research and expose to fighting positions as well. These are the same sort of emplacement available to not only the utility car, but as well as to the base emplacements. They only have 1 weapon slot now, aka probably your M1919s, thus making them pretty good substitute to actual riflemen. And that sums up for the infantry. Now let's talk about recon support. You can see here. Recon support has undergone some quite large changes. The RR Pathfinders just replaced with regular Pathfinders at first. No access to any default artillery. but a doctrinal ability called Forward Observers are now available. This grants access to all officer squad, or to the lieutenant and the captain, as well as the Pathfinder squad is able to call in not only reconnaissance, but artillery strikes, equivalent to the unvetted major. The original artillery strike available to the IR Pathfinders had a very small window of reaction in this way, and also pretty expensive and able to knock out engines and whatnot. Now with the major artillery variation, it just calls in a cheap, not so effective artillery barrage. But it's cheap. You get what you pay for. Additionally, this shares a global cooldown with all the officers and other Pathfinders artillery strike, including the major. Same goes for the reconnaissance run that's available to all these squads as well. Shares a global cooldown with all the other officer squads, as well as other Pathfinders. This doctrine's always been sort of like an alternative to Airborne, access to both Airborne units as well as the Pathfinders, with slight variations. No longer has any Airborne squad to call in. That squad ability has been removed, and the Greyhound was a little lackluster for the USF roster, so I moved it to the UKF roster in the Lend-Lease Assault Doctrine. The Greyhound has been added in this doctrine for 6 command points, making this arrive sooner than medium tanks and allows us to get some work done in order to support infantry squads. Additionally, the M83 cluster bond has undergone some changes. Beforehand, it was a pretty overpowered ability compared for its cost. Now it is select target. Of course, wait for the aircraft to come on in. See, they still drop down, but they don't explode on impact. Now it is a minefield, like the S-mines. It's maybe hard to see due to how the camouflage can work. Phone rings, don't want to answer that. There are some exposed PMD mines, not PMD, these cluster mines here. This will help mark the area that there's now a minefield here, like an S minefield. Which, of course, all this stuff can be swept by a minesweeper, but these exposed ones will help mark the area like the picket signs. And so that pretty much sums up that doctrine. And now let's move on to the Sherman. Let's go to the mechanized company. In the mechanized company, the WC51 has undergone some small changes. Go ahead and make this into enemy. Still retains the ability to capture points for the WC51, but now it is slightly different. Oops. No longer comes like automatically canvassed. Now it has access to another upgrade that's mutually exclusive. You all are familiar with the 50 cal, but now has access. Will that phone shut up? We now have access to a supply truck upgrade. So instead of, if you just want to use it to garrison units and then move around, now this supply truck upgrade is very similar to the Opal Blitz. Actually, exactly like it. Locks down the sector and then gathers supply. Choose one, not both. So this way, if you want to use WC51 as a troop carrier temporarily in the early game, and then you don't want it for combat anymore, it no longer, and now you can just upgrade it to a supply truck and call it good. There is additionally does not have access to its 2 abilities anymore. I sort of view that as in fact a way to cram in more abilities into a doctrine that passes 5 slots. So it no longer has access to the off-map artillery or the marked target. The Sherman 76 has undergone some big changes, as well as the EZ-8. As with the Soviet Sherman 76, the 76mm is now a dedicated heavier anti-tank unit. No longer has access to any high explosive rounds. This is one way to help differentiate with the EZ8. If the EZ8 and the EZ6, the 76mm, always had an issue of sort of overlapping roles. The Sherman 76, of course, has the... Oops, not that one.
Armor ready.
The table. Has the improved health, so it takes 6 shots rather than the 5 shots, and has tank destroyer damage, making it an effective anti-tank squad, but no longer has the ability to switch rounds. It can and has the HEVAC rounds always equipped. The EZ8, however, is now a command squad. The command squad provides an accuracy buff to nearby vehicles, as well as only able to be called one in at a time. This thus makes the rifle company's EZ8 a bit more different than the spammable Sherman 76s. The EZ8 also has ability to engage infantry quite reasonably if I were to spawn in a couple squads. See here, this guy did not take out a model, but this guy took out one model in each fire. Got one model per squad, and this guy rolls another miss. So yeah, the EZ8 is just now a command unit, while the 76 is now just a dedicated anti-tank unit that's a bit more heavier than the Jackson. And, oh yeah, onto Rifle Company, as we mentioned with the Sherman 76, the flamethrower ability, was also bundled with the flare ability and fire, and also has another ability with Fired Up. Since the flamethrower is available non-doctrinal, that part was removed. Fired Up has been merged with the flare ability, and also grants access to a cooked frag grenade, which grants access to riflemen. If you have the grenade research, have to throw out cooked grenades rather than regular frag grenades, reducing the fuse timer. Oh yeah, back to mechanized. The mechanized cavalry riflemen were really not a very unique squad, so I adjusted them so now the rifleman has access to a cavalry rifleman upgrade rather than a cavalry rifleman call-in, which grants access, replaces their Garands with carbines, and gives them 2 Thompson submachine guns. And anything else? Oh yeah, one last thing. The Calliope has undergone a small change. If I were to spawn one in, you may immediately notice that, oh, it has access to attack ground. The main gun, while very slowly, can now fire. The turret rotation is quite poor, but it has the capability of fighting off infantry and tanks just using its main gun. Additionally, its turret can now fire the rockets from an angle rather than just facing towards the target. Additionally, its health has been increased from 320 up to 640, making it much more resilient to other rock artillery pieces, but still able to engage other units and whatnot. And that sums up for all the USF changes. Here we are with OKW. OKW has known being probably the more powerful of the 2 Axis factions, and also undergone known for like other things such as Pioneer rushing and whatnot. But with now Shun Pioneer is no longer the initial unit and spawning with a little bit of delay, that problem should be fixed unless the player actually goes for a bulletin, in which then the other player knows based on the loading screen. Volksgrenadiers has always been a little bit of an identity crisis. In the beginning, they had extremely good veterancy and the Panzerstrike upgrade rather than the STG upgrade. But right now, I've undergone another change. I never liked the STG upgrade, the fact that Shun Pioneers also have access to STGs, and its doctrinal ability for Obersassen also have SDGs, I decided to change it to more function, more of a reserve unit, focus more on durability rather than outright damage. If I were to spawn sheer panzer quarters as well. See here, they don't have the SDG upgrade anymore, and the incendiary grenade has been replaced with regular frag grenade. The incendiary grenade is no longer necessary with the non-doctrinal flamethrower. They now have access to a bolster infantry squad, increasing the squad size by 1, with not super highly potent per individual model, so this is a small upgrade, more focused on durability rather than outright damage, but does offer in a small bit of damage. Additionally, the Sheer Panzer Quarters gives it access to the Group Zeal ability, which grants access to the Volksgrenadier to Zeal, which is their variant of to the Last Man. As you start losing models, they start doing a bit more damage. This allows them to scale a little bit better in the late game, though riflemen will still win out at close range with their dual bars, but at long range they can easily win. Next up, something important is, you probably also notice that they don't have access to a salvage ability. There's no longer a non-doctrinal salvage ability for OKW. Now they have access to Opel Blitz supply trucks to lock down and secure territory, as well as increased resource income.
Ready for action. Prepare to execute orders. Grenadiers ready.
And one last thing is, they now also have base medics. If I will go ahead and spawn the battle group HQ. Or I could just spawn in this way.
Command vehicle has gone static. HQ operations now underway.
I'm going to sneeze. Like you can see here, there's no more medical upgrade here. The 4 retreat points available immediately upon deployment no longer requires the Sheer Panzer Quarters Panzer authorization. And now when researching the medics, it will grant access to medics to both the HQ and to all 4 battle group HQs. Thus now each team will have access, each OKW player will have access to medics regardless what tech path they go down. Now on to Tier 1. Tier 1 has access, I have removed the IR half track since originally the scan ability was a bit broken and the current one is just not super good. I just outright decided to remove it and move the Obersoldaten into this structure. Obersoldaten are now equipped with G43s, but their damage from output remains the same. This is more of a visual effect. This elite unit might as well should have a bit more powerful sounding rifles rather than the Kar 98s. When the Sheer Panzer Quarters is deployed, you can gain access to the MG34 upgrade, but now they also have access to a ×4 PZB rifle upgrade, which can reasonably fight against infantry as well. This way, this structure has access to an AT support unit, the Obersoldaten, as well as anti-infantry, a suppression unit, an anti-infantry vehicle, the 251, and indirect fire through the Lig. Let's go ahead and make our way to the Sheer Panzer Quarters. Obersoldaten, of course, now removed. The Panther is also removed. More on that later. And now this structure has a dedicated anti-infantry unit, the Panzer IV-C. The Panzer IV-C is the short-barreled Panzer IV. The Panzer IV, short-barreled Panzer IVs now fire projectiles in an arcing pattern rather than a straight line pattern, and also have access to the MG42 upgrade. The Panzer IV-J has been renamed to the Panzer IV-H because it's clearly a Panzer IV-H model. The Panzer IV-J model in real life is more reserve mass production variant with reduced turret rotation, but this is clearly the Panzer IV-H with the superior armor. The armor, however, no longer has more armor than the regular Panzer IVs, but now equates to additional health. If I were to bring up the display table, see here they have the 6-shot health of 960 rather than the 4-shot variant, or the 5-shot variant of the 800 health.
Standing by. Send orders.
So the Panzer IV is a heavier medium tank in comparison to the other faction's counterparts. The Jagdpanzer is still pretty much the same, though I have reduced its rate of fire and increased its penetration, make it a bit more reliable and reasonable, such as the Su-85. The Panzer with authorization is outright removed, and the enable flak gun is a 100 munition upgrade to enable, well, the flak gun. Panzer authorization is no longer needed for any sort of teching or command abilities. Just go ahead and select that. Go ahead and build up the HQ. Now on to the Mechanized Assault Regiment. First thing you may have noticed is the fact that there's no King Tiger column now, and the Panther is actually moved into this structure. Panther is now the dedicated late game having all structures unit, no longer the King Tiger. This of course allows it, in case if you lose the sheer panzer quarters, you always have access to a heavier tank destroyer, assuming all structures have been built, regardless how much structures you've lost. The King Tiger is no longer available because I'm against the non-doctrinal heavy tanks, or at least general purpose heavy tanks, and now the King Tiger has been moved to doctrine. And last but not least, let's talk about the Stukas. First, let's talk about the regular barrage they has. No longer creeping barrage, now it's a point-click target, fire, scatter in a general area. Just like the Panzerwerfer and Katusha, but fires off all of its rounds quite quickly. And that sums up for all the non-doctrinal changes. On to the doctrines. Let's first talk about the Fear Storm, which I locked in to show that King Tiger bit. Of course, still grants access to the Flame Hetzler, which, whoops, I'll fix that before that goes live. The Flamethrower being non-doctrinal and the MP40 upgrade just not available to Volksgrenadiers anymore, now grants access to Incendiary Grenades. Replaces the Frag Grenade for the Volksgrenadier with the Incendiary Grenade, and gives access to the Incendiary Grenade to the Sturm Pioneers. The Open Blitz column has been replaced with a passive Open Blitz munitions truck, which now gives its previous aura and healing ability passively to all Open Blitz. And you're receiving another phone call. Great. The Incendiary Munitions now also not only grants access to the Incendiary Barrage to the Lag, but also grants access to the Incendiary Barrage to the more immediately available, the Incendiary Barrage to the Stukas. So either you can wait for Vet 4 to get it, or you can go ahead and get it immediately through selecting the Doctrine. Costs 100 munitions, quite expensive to use, but now you have access to the Incendiary Barrage to either teching path. And that sums up for all the Fear Storms. Now on to the other doctrinal stuff. Panzer Fusiliers. Panzer Fusiliers are one of the worst designed units in this game and currently live. Let's have 2 squads available from the HQ, 5-man, bolt-action rifles, infantry upgrades. Both have snares, both have grenades. That's how it is in live. Like, there's very little difference other than what they can do. So instead, I decided to outright change how Panzer Fusiliers work. Now, it's a designated 4-man squad with 2 Penstreks. They can go ahead and also build Teller Mines. It's a nice, simple ability. A dedicated anti-tank, mobile anti-tank unit. No telemines, Panatrix, ready to ambush any sort of armor. Next up is... okay, Grand Offensive. I'm not a huge... there's a lot of things... a lot of OKW doctrines add in Ostheer supplies because originally this faction was released with a lack of units as sort of gimmick, as among other things. But that's all been changed, and I'm largely against of the doctrines how it's like, oh, let's just add in so you can call in some Ostheer units because why not? So instead, the Grand Offensive Tiger tank has been replaced with the King Tiger. The 221 call-in has been replaced with Volk's repair ability, similar to Soviet's repair ability for conscripts. Now, Volk's Grenadiers can repair once that doctrine is activated for 4 command points. Well, the Oswin sort of falls in the same boat, but the Oswin sort of a bit more of a rare item to see, so I decided to go ahead and keep it in as it is. Special Operations Radio Silence. Probably one of the most worthless abilities in the entire game. Let me go ahead and give myself the ability. It is probably the most worthless ability in the game. But I made a small change to it. Its munition cost has increased to compensate for the change, but now for the duration... all the infantry, Volksgrenadier, Stone Pioneers, MG34s, and any MG, and the Obersoldaten all gain camouflage for the duration. 75 munitions for 60 seconds of camouflage. This camouflage does not require cover, so this should make for quite aggressive play. Additionally, something I never noticed until I actually start testing around with the ability is the audio logs, the audio, it's all changed to radio static. This actually is what it is in the base game. I never knew that. It's such a cool little feature that never gets seen. But yeah, this should make this ability much more useful. And oh, one last thing. With the non-doctrinal flak emplacements, I've made it so, and I made some adjustments to the improved fortifications. Heavy fortifications, that's what it's called. No longer, since the flak placement is now available non-doctrinal, having this ability grants access to a number of 3 different structures. Of course, we all know about the tank traps, but it changes from the steel tank traps to the concrete one.
This is what we're trained for. We're relocating. Come on.
Now they can also build the reinforced HMG bunker. Costs a little bit more manpower, but much more durable. Let's go ahead and get some more PopCap. So now they can build that reinforced bunker. I don't have an icon for this, but now they also grants access to a Panther Turum. Panther Turum? This structure has been seen in Company of Heroes 1 campaigns. So upon building it, it gives you access to a Panther Turum turret. Let me just go ahead and... once construction, the vision ports will open up. The gun just retains 240 damage, but is able to pinpoint hit single infantry units as well. I suppose once it just gets in there, opens up the windows. You can place an MG42 in there, gets 3 angles of fire. So you can have if you put the MG34 in there, or any sort of MG, now you have a designated bunker/anti-vehicle turret. Let's go ahead and make this into an enemy. See, the Panther Turum does fire. I probably should put a sound effect with it, because I don't actually have a default sound effect. But with the uphill sort of battle it is, it's sort of hard for the main gun to fire, but its main gun can actually hit infantry squads. And yep, that sums up for all the doctrinal changes for OKW, I believe. And next to UKF. And here we are with United Kingdom Forces, the last faction to cover. Some noticeable changes. Let's first talk about Tier 0. The Vickers and the Royal Engineers have been swapped. The medics have undergone a small change. Now they constantly provide their healing aura and use the automatic healing button in order to stop them from moving so they can heal nearby units. This is a way to prevent their huge bugginess they have currently in live, where they just do not want to heal anything nearby. And so this here should be a simple fix, not a most ideal fix, but it's a simple, quick fix. The infantry section has undergone some balance changes. Now they're, rather than built around a 4-man squad, they're now built around a 5-man squad. Ostheer will still increase the squad size by 1, as well as the Royal Engineers. So now the infantry section's max squad size is 6. And the weapon racks and their firepower, at least for the Bren, has been reduced on what this squad can accomplish. It makes them a bit more balanced. Right now in live, 5-man squads with Brens are really overperforming. This way, it has reduced effectiveness. Universal carriers with the non-doctrinal flamethrowers. The Wasp upgrade has been swapped with the doctrinal M2 flamethrower. So now the Wasp upgrade requires a doctrine. Now let's go ahead and move on to Tier 1. You got the Vickers. You now have a mobile mortar team in this structure. As we still have the assault officer and the 6-pounder. The sniper has been moved to a doctrine. AEC research and the Bofors research are now removed and replaced, and hammer anvils moved in this structure. Hammer anvil is no longer mutually exclusive and grants access to 2 items rather than just 1. This helps increase the timing for the AEC, making it so it's more properly timing with all of its counterparts and what items it's supposed to counter. And the same thing as well as the Bofors, no longer immediate rush of Bofors for a really hard emplacement to deal with, depending on what faction you go as. It's just a slight delay for the Bofors. Additionally, Anvil does provide access to the 25-pounder, which is a heavy artillery emplacement, where UKF lacks a late-game heavy artillery emplacement. The max range is only 160, not the full 230 or 250. I forget the exact range for the other artillery pieces, but this is available non-doctrinally. It does retain the auto attack, as well as access to a creeping smoke barrage, if I were to demonstrate it. Fire. And smoke. Let's see now. The M3 half-track does not have the weapon drops anymore, seeing it's non-doctrinal. The, oh, something I should mention is all the artillery emplacement, all the emplacements no longer have a non-doctrinal brace. See, no brace, and you will see there's no brace. Both the mortar pit and the brace ability has been moved to advanced emplacement. And let's go ahead and talk about the advanced emplacement.
The ability is ready. The ability is ready.
The mortar pit can be built by infantry sections, as well as the Bofors and 17-pounder. The upgrade, the improved fortifications upgrade, has been removed, and now that it does Brace does occupy that spot. Additionally, precision barrage has been replaced with the mortar emplacement. Precision barrage was sort of a overpowered item for this doctrine due to the fact that it counters its own counter once you get spotted in an artillery placement, or artillery gun that counters these emplacements. Then you can just call it in and obliterate that target. Plus, it also damages engines quite severely and whatnot.
Let's get to work.
Additionally, the counter barrage is available to 25-pounder. The advanced repair assembly has been adjusted, so it has increased radius. It was nerfed to pretty much to oblivion in its repair radius, but it no longer repairs units in combat, which was actually its prime biggest strength. Now this is more of a recover after combat capability. If I were to get this thing damaged, I'll let the engineers spawn in. See here, over here, it's out of combat. There's the first repair engineer. Let me just go ahead and get it in combat. You can see here, it's in combat, but not the repair engineer is not following. Once that symbol goes away, it's no longer considered in combat, and the repair engineers will go in and, well, start repairing it.
Ready to do our bit.
And let's see. That's something for advanced emplacement. The Commando Regiment has undergone some minor changes. One big, one minor. First talk about the Commandos. Commandos now have access to a Vigorous Light Machine Gun upgrade. Gives them access to 2 Vigorous Light Machine Guns. Not required weapon racks or anything like that. So, small buff to Commandos. And the big change is the air supremacy operation has undergone some changes. Let me go ahead and spawn out some targets for it. Couple infantry. Let's get a tank, and buildings. Let's throw out a couple bunkers as well. Okay, the AI, infinite resources. Now here we go. Something I want to point out first is Fog of War. Still cannot target within the Fog of War. However, once in target of a Fog of War, a reconnaissance aircraft will come on in, as well as Overwatch actions, and they'll call in some airstrikes, noted by the fire. 2 to 3 rocket strikes will come in, 2 to 3 machine gun strikes will come in, and about 2 bombing runs will come in on buildings. Though the accuracy of the bombing runs are not super great. This way, it's sort of self-spotting, but the greatest way to counter it is have anti-aircraft in order to shoot down the reconnaissance aircraft. So yep, that's some of the changes for the Commandos. Next big change is Lend-Lease Assault, which is probably best if actually select the doctrine entirely, so let me go ahead and restart. Let's see, let me go ahead and talk about the other doctrinal changes. The M2 flamethrower has been replaced with the Wasp upgrade. The Valentine coordinated barrage ability now affects 25-pounder emplacements as well. Perimeter overwatches off map also interacts with the 25-pounders. The ABRE, I'll probably show that.
An infantry section of Tommies has been trained.
And well, here we go. Lend-Lease doctrine. Beforehand, it had showed. Let me just go ahead and spawn in a couple squads.
Infantry squad trained and ready to go.
Select it. Now it grants access. A lot of these. Some other reason this doctrine some of the UKF stuff, as well as even US Rifleman, has some bugged out keys, even the description keys. Even if you have what seems like correct, you have to manually re-enter some stuff. There's actually, when it comes to UKF, some of the symbols are actually different as well if you try to use the mod tools rather than it's different from live. More on that on a little bit later. With this doctrine selected, you may now have access to, usually was the assault infantry section upgrade. I was not a fan for them returning it back into a individual unit. I preferred it if they actually kept it as a unit upgrade, especially to the fact that now I have the Royal Engineers available from the Tier 0. You don't need a dedicated CQB unit. It overlaps with the Royal Engineers themselves. So now it grants access to, once again, to the assault infantry section upgrade. Let me go ahead and get some additional resources. And the thing is here, some odd reason in the mod files, what I can edit, this is the default symbol for the assault section of the infantry section. And you can see closely, it says SMG. I think this may be related to Chinese symbols. I've had issues with a number of things. Like if I were to bring in the US Rifleman, this description here is a bunch of squares. It's actually a bunch of Chinese characters as well. If I were to spawn in even the cheap mod commands, you can see some issues with their own symbols in here. Well, that is the proper symbol of the tank hunters. It's actually going to be much different once I pull up the doctrine. It actually says the word AT right there, but this is a number of weird things with the current files for some odd reason. Let's see now. Lend-Lease Assault. Since the mobile mortar is sort of pointless now, the M10 is quite lackluster, and the M3 is available non-doctrinal. 3 of the abilities in this doctrine had been replaced. The mobile mortar has been replaced with the mortar half-track. A good item to round out the UKF roster, a mobile mortar half-track. The M10 was quite lackluster, so I replaced it with the M8 Greyhound, which I removed from United States doctrines, and it fits in quite well with UKF with their lack of a dedicated anti-infantry unit. So this is a pretty good complementary unit to the UKF roster. And what was the last unit that got changed? I'm trying to think of what it was. Oh yeah, the M3, the M5 half-track. Instead, I just made it Allied Air drop. That's the same one that Soviets has. So drop in, pay 100 munitions, get about 30 fuel. A nice reasonable ability. Additionally, the vehicle crew repairs have undergone a small change. Let me just go ahead and disable the AI. Terror points captured. Fog of war off. Think. Health. Get it wounded. Push the command points up by 1. Now, of course, I have access to the vehicle crew repairs. Instead of off-map smoke, it now comes from the base howitzers. So, yep, that's just a small change. Just make those base howitzers much more integral into a lot of doctrines. That sums up changes for Lend-Lease Assault. This should make them a bit more aggressive and mobile. Let's see. Aha, AVRE. The AVRE, I really don't like the current design for it. It's, instead of using the whole cast ability and hope you get a good shot and hope your opponent's not reacting, I changed it so it more functions like a Brumbar. Has an auto attack and to engage infantry units. This way it actually probably does more damage than its original purpose because it has much more sustain. Negative ground being very effective. let me show you something that's not in negative ground, because negative ground gives you a plus 50% damage boost. But yeah, I think it has the same damage profile as the Brumbar. Yep. Yep. It's just now a mobile, constant pressure, heavy-duty infantry support vehicle. This actually should be a pretty sizable buff. Now onto the Special Weapons Regiment, which I made some small changes. Primarily, since the M3 half-tracks are now available non-doctrinally, that ability has been changed to the Sniper Light Infantry. And also the Tank Hunter ability. Grab the Field Recovery while at it. Tank Hunter and Resupply Half-Track. As you can see here, now it is a Boys AT upgrade available both to the Royal Engineers as well as to infantry sections. And here's that weird symbol. It says, literally says AT right there. That's not used in live. This is actually what is used in live. So I have no idea why this is the default symbol for in the in-game files. It also grants access to the snare ability. Population cap reached. And here we go, the sniper. 4-man squad, scoped rifle, 1 slot item, and should be a good complementary force to the UKF roster. Especially now with a more defensive playstyle and more resilient infantry section rather than high damage infantry section. The infantry section here could put out some good, just enough damage for the snipes to come off, as well as hold the line. Tactical Support Regiment. The Royal Engineers have changed. The Royal Recovery Engineers. It can be a bit hard to see because spawning the ability like this doesn't exactly grant the actual recovery ability, but when you hit the doctrine selected, it now grants access to the recovery ability, and the field recovery operations actual select can be used to fire a flares over wreckages. However, if there's it does not check if there's any wreckages there. So if your opponent decides to clean up and destroy all the wreckages, this ability is a waste of munitions. But if there are some, you get some good, cheaper form of reconnaissance. Available at 1 command point. And in a similar note with the forward observation post, it checks off multiple things like the... what's it called? Like the forward HQ available to Soviets. So I changed it back into the... what's it called? Artillery cover ability. But I put some small changes. It still does the wounding crew action or off-map artillery to the vehicles. However, let's see. Where's that forward HQ? What else observation post? It still does the... Oops. If I were to... lunar enemy. Spawn in some infantry. A couple team weapons. And that should do it. And so, if I were to... also, I should probably spawn a couple 25-pounder replacements for my testing purposes.
Units are now ready to use anvil defensive drills and tactics.
As that's being built, I will go ahead and activate this. Now it will fire smoke rounds on top of team weapons, and it does not provide any suppressive barrages against infantry. It still provides smoke barrages to your own wounded vehicles, but it has just more smoke. The Base howitzers will also piston shots, if assuming it is in range. I believe those hit infantry units, while the 25-pounder emplacements goes ahead and hits the infantry, if I remember correctly. I'm going to sneeze. While the 25-pounders hits the emplacements hit the infantry, and the base howitzers hit the vehicles, assume they're in range. But yeah, now it provides a bit more supporting, while not being as overpowered as it was before. It's more primarily against infantry and smoking out team weapons. And I think that's, yep, and that sums up for all the changes for the UKF. If you have, I'll probably have the full description of the mod down below or in the links nearby. And yeah, go ahead and give a test in this mod. Make comments about your inputs of what you would change, what you